All right, welcome back to the Fantasy Flex podcast. This is Bryan. I'm here with Jay. Jay, it's MLB season. What up, man?
It's great to have MLB season, and it's nice to actually get into the real opening day tomorrow. Today was just a fake. It was an appetizer.
Mm-hmm.
It was lobster bisque. People who thought today was opening day are the same people that think Sunday is the first day of the week when we all know it's Monday.
It's true, yeah, and not great baseball earlier today, but hopefully I think we're going to get a lot of good. I mean, we have a lot of aces tomorrow. I'm not sure how many runs will be scored, but I think one of these games will be good.
No, I agree. Yeah, we'll definitely get some good games. Today was just lackluster all around, and I even had a good day cash-wise. Some too-low bomb on my cash squad, which I was very hesitant on playing, was nice. But, I think it's a huge day, lots of tournaments that we didn't really see today. And then, we still got NBA the rest of this week too. So, I love playing a little bit of basketball.
Yeah, and UNC, my boys, playing tomorrow night, playing in the national championship against Villanova.
Yeah, man.
Jay.
I got UNC covering, and I think I'm going to go heavy on those jelly beans.
Ooh, I like it. Yeah, I'm incredibly nervous. I care more about UNC basketball than I do just about anything in the world. So I'm just so nervous right now.
I'm kind of like that.
Confident, which just makes me even more nervous.
I'm confident for you. I don't think I care about anything that much in the world than you do UNC, but it's inspiring. I mean, the closest thing I have is like Cinnamon Toast Crunch or something. I can't go anywhere without a box.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. But yeah, I'm confident. I think they'll do well. But in the meantime, I'm excited to talk about MLB.
Yeah, it's baseball.
I obviously love NBA. You and I have been doing podcasts, but MLB is going to be awesome. A quick note before we jump into it: we're going to do these podcasts Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we're going to do it 4 times a week. Jay and I are going to be on them just about every day. We're going to have Pete, we're going to have Bales, we're going to have some other guys rotate in, but we're going to mix it up and have it 4 days a week. And we're going to do the show by segments, and we'll kind of jump right in, and you'll obviously see the segments as we go. So we'll jump into the first segment now, which is going over the Vegas lines. We're going to record – we're actually recording this on Sunday night, but we're going to, as the season progresses, record this during the day so we can kind of get into movement. But for now, we'll kind of just go over the lines. Obviously, Jay, this one's very stark, this slate. We have 3 teams at the top that are projected for a ton of runs, and then we have some teams really, really low as 2.4 right now. So seems like it's kind of easy to figure out kind of where you want to focus in Vegas, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the lines say a lot, especially this earlier in the season. We have 3 teams projected at 4.5 runs tomorrow, the Diamondbacks, Orioles, and Reds. So you're kind of targeting Jorge De La Rosa, Irvin Santana, and Jeremy Hellickson, which is great for us because a lot of the other pitchers are really, really good, and you don't really want to go to those guys. So, I think the way you look at it is for cash, you kind of want to target players on teams with high implied totals, especially on this first slate with all these aces out there. And then tournaments, I think since, MLB has such high variance, you can kind of use the poor Vegas lines perhaps as an advantage and exploit them. So, I think more exposure with lower ownership can go a long way on this slate.
Yeah, I actually wrote an article about this on Friday. The name of the article is why astrology is important in DFS, which is not what the article is actually about. It kind of just talks about how there's important variables and like predictive variables, and just about anything in DFS is actually important. So my point was that if people are using data, it's important, even if it's incorrect. And my point in that was I looked at the data, and actually Vegas is a little more wrong early in the season, which is natural. I mean, like anytime we have less data on something, it's going to be less predictive. But people use Vegas lines as heavy earlier in the season as they do kind of later in the season. So my point was that if you're ever going to be off of Vegas early in the season, I think is the time to be. So I don't think that means that you have to like stack San Diego against Kershaw, but do you think maybe you're willing to, go against these like not the 4-5 ones, but like the 3-8, 3-7 implied runs as like kind of your main stacks?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think it's great to look at, the Vegas lines early season to kind of get a gauge on in terms of ownership. And, You brought up, it was your article astrology or astronomy?
Astrology.
Okay, either way. Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say I definitely failed astronomy in college, but your article made a lot of sense, so it's a lot better than what I went through. Yeah, no problem, man. But yeah, I think people put a lot of trust into Vegas lines, and especially at the beginning of the season, there's not a lot to go off of for a lot of people, so they immediately go to Vegas lines because they trust them, and I think it's the perfect time to put more emphasis on tournaments and kind of fade Vegas. Get a bit contrarian when actually you're just getting good value. And then I think later on in the season, you can rely on Vegas a little bit more when things normalize.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's how you think about it. If you think ownership, and generally this is how it goes, like ownership is kind of a direct correlation with Vegas lines. Like you'll see that in tournaments. So like obviously later in the season where Vegas like nails a lot of their picks. Like it makes sense that ownership would match up. But if we know Vegas is going to be off, and all of these guys are going to be highly owned, and we'll kind of get into these in just a second with our plays. But it just doesn't make sense to necessarily focus on those guys because the ownership and the value that you're getting doesn't really match up.
Oh, for sure, exactly. It's a great time to kind of go against the grain in the early season. So I put a little bit more weight into tournaments early season.
Yeah, completely agree. Okay, we will move on to our next segment, which is going to be focusing on pitchers. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to give I'm going to give 2 cash DraftKings pitchers I like. He's going to give 2 FanDuel cash pitchers, and then we're going to give a couple tournament pitchers. So I'll start with EK. And the 2 guys I'm looking at for on DraftKings is Madison Bumgarner and Clayton Kershaw. I think they're going to be kind of the chalky plays. And the bum is really just because of the matchup. I mean, he's obviously an elite guy. He has a 9.7 K per 9. K per 9 is strikeouts per 9 innings. It's obviously a stat that we want. Really, casual tournaments, we want to get strikeouts. And he's going against the highest strikeout team. They whiff the most. And he's actually a really, really good bargain on DraftKings. For some reason, he's only 9,200, kind of despite the matchup. And Vegas has the opposing runs for him at just 3, so he's one of the really low ones. I will say it will be cold in that game, but I'm not terribly worried about that because it's also kind of a negative situation for hitters. Kershaw, I don't need to say much. He's elite. He has safety and upside, and we have a segment later that's called the Stat of the Day, which I'm going to dive a little bit into Kershaw there. So I'll kick it to you for your chalk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of along the same lines of I generally like putting a heavy emphasis on paying up for my pitching in DFS because there's so much variance with the rest of your lineup. So I think you have a much better idea of your pitcher's floor and ceiling in terms of relatively consistent strikeout rate. So on FanDuel, I think it's pretty easy to identify on this slate overall the cash plays. And I think one I'm looking at very strongly is Max Scherzer facing an abysmal Braves offense that was last in the league in runs scored last year at home and overall. And he's 10,500. And then, obviously you got Kershaw at 11K, which is definitely expensive, but I think there are enough underpriced guys on FanDuel overall. You can afford him. So you can really kind of go down the list in cash on FanDuel. I strongly just recommend paying up for safety.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Kershaw is kind of an elite play, and we've done some studies. Like even when he's priced at like 14K or 15K, he's still like a great value. It's crazy that is. Okay, so I'll hit on 2 DraftKings kind of tournament options, and then I'll let you do the same for FanDuel. Tournament guys I'm looking at is Greinke and Kluber. And so starting with Greinke, he's probably not really the trendy tournament play tomorrow. I'm not sure how highly owned he's going to be. For example, like a guy like David Price has a better matchup on paper, and he's a higher K9 or 8. And Cleveland obviously whiffs a lot more. They strike out a lot more than Greinke's matchup, but he's just really, really low on DraftKings as far as his salary goes. He, for some reason, like he was in like the over 10K, like 11, 12K range last year, and is at like 92 on DraftKings, just insanely cheap. Kluber is kind of the same deal. He's in the 8 range. And he has elite stuff, and that's kind of why I like him. You remember that 18 strikeout game last year when he just and although the Red Sox don't strike out, it's kind of like on DraftKings, I think they're priced more appropriately than on FanDuel, so it's kind of tough to get some of these top guys. So I think kind of Greinke and Kluber are kind of the clear underpriced guys with both elite upside. he's just really underpriced. That's kind of what it is for me. Who are your tournament
Yeah,
players on FanDuel?
makes sense. Yeah, so first one I got on FanDuel is Raisel Iglesias, who gets the soft Phillies at home, and he's just 6,400, which definitely stands out to me. The reason I'm not really considering him in cash at all is because he does come with some concerns. Even at that cheap price, he could potentially be on a pitch limit of around 90 pitches. So, I don't really want to risk in cash a guy who can possibly go 5 innings. But, for tournaments, I definitely think the upside is there, and it allows you to really stack your bats. And then the second tournament play I have on FanDuel that I like a lot is Tyson Ross at 7,600. Kind of going back to Vegas lines and movements, the Dodgers are receiving 89% of the money line bets. And I think this is kind of a good indication of where people are at in terms of, how many people are going to take a pitcher against Clayton Kershaw. Not many. So I think this really drives the ownership down for Tyson Ross. But in some of these large field tournaments, you need to get a bit contrarian. And I think Ross fits the mold here. He has a great K per 9 rate. He's an amazing ground ball pitcher. His ground ball percentage is actually the highest out of any pitcher on this slate. So, as always with Ross, I think the big concern is walks. And the Dodgers are a great team at drawing walks. So, that's kind of why he fits into a tournament play.
Yeah, and obviously this slate is very unique as compared to slates later in the year, just because almost everyone's an ace. Like, they're throwing out their top guys every team. So it's kind of tough to navigate, and it's going to be tough sledding tomorrow for sure. But
Jorge De La Rosa is definitely an ace, by the way.
There you go. Cool. All right, well, we'll move to our next segment, which is batters. We're going to give our 3 kind of elite top batters that we're interested in. Not necessarily the 3 top batters, but just guys that we've identified that we think are really interesting tomorrow. So, Jay, I'll let you start, give you your 3, and then I'll run through my 3.
All right, cool. I think with this first one, it's no surprise. I'm not trying to be all fancy here or anything, but Paul Goldschmidt, he is expensive, but which is a bit more difficult to kind of fit on this slate where you want to pay up for pitching. But he kind of has everything going for him. He gets to face a lefty where he has historically done well against. 458 WOBA against lefties last season. He's facing Jorge De La Rosa, who's unfortunately the Rockies' ace. He has served up 38 home runs over the last 2 years. So, and Goldschmidt obviously gets a favorable park factor as well. So it's not really surprising that Goldie is one of my favorite hitters to target on this slate. Another one I'm really liking a lot on this slate is Manny Machado. I want a piece of Urban Santana. We talked about it in the lines, how their implied run total is 4.5, which is tied for the highest on the slate. So Manny Machado is fully expected to hit leadoff in this game. With the team tied for the highest implied runs, sign me up for Machado. He is my dark horse for the AL MVP as well. And then the last guy, I know. That's not even my bold call of the day. The last one I think will be underutilized on this slate overall, and this is strictly a tournament play, is Nelson Cruz. Let's not forget, he is facing a lefty. It is Cole Hamels. Cruz had a 315 ISO against lefties last year. Hamels is no stranger to the long ball, either in his career, and obviously, neither is Nelson Cruz. So I think he makes for a great tournament play due to his double dong upside potential, and I think he'll be under-owned because it's kind of really hard to pay up for guys in this slate, and I think he'll kind of be, not looked at as strong as someone like Goldschmidt, for example.
Cool. Yeah, I'll run through mine quickly. The top guy for me is Chris Davis. I think he might be the top overall batter on the slate, just his stats-wise, and we have these new advanced stat. He's the highest distance as far as batted ball distance in this slate. He crushes righties. He's got a 592 slugging percentage. He's super cheap on FanDuel. He's got 97% bargain rating, kind of relative to DraftKings. High implied totals in that, the opposite of that Baltimore game. And his park factor is amazing. It's 78, and you can obviously look at the models to kind of see that. Donaldson, I don't need to say much about him. He's facing a lefty. Josh Donaldson against a lefty. Just play Josh Donaldson. I mean, he's got a 342 ISO, 649 slugging against lefty, which is just absurd. He's outside of Toronto, and he struggled a little bit today, so I think it might lower his ownership. But I'm on Donaldson for a little bit. And the other guy I like is Denard Span. He's super cheap on FanDuel compared to DK. He's 3-1 on FanDuel. He's like 4-6 on DK. He's going against Willie Parada, who is the worst whip of the slate. And never strikes at anyone, just not a great pitcher. Span matches up well against that to get on base, and that's kind of where we want him because he does have kind of a lead upside as far as stealing a base goes. It's hard to get upside guys as far as base stealers because you usually have to pay up for a guy like Goldie who has elite upside, or you have to take a guy who's just a really awful batter like Billy Hamilton. So Span is kind of the in-between guy who's pretty good, but also has elite upside when he gets on the base. So cool.
Sure.
Value batters. Let's go over kind of 3-1s on FanDuel and DraftKings, and we'll kind of move from there. So I'll let you start with FanDuel.
All right, cool. Yeah, you definitely need some value hitters on the slate. So the first one I'm kind of looking at here is Joe Panic, just 2,600. Nothing really flashy about Panic overall. He definitely hits in a favorable part of the order and is facing a pitcher who isn't really in the same type of league as a lot of these other guys. So, I think Panic with his favorable walk rate, not a bad option to punt at a pretty weak position to save salary. Another guy kind of in the same situation is Ketel Marte, who again isn't flashy but plays a position that you probably want to save at. He's also just 2,600. So, second base and shortstop aren't necessarily known for their depth. So in order to build your team around an ace, you're going to have to save at some weak positions. So he is already confirmed hitting at the 2-hole, which he will do quite a bit versus lefties this season. So I expect him to have a decent chance at a stolen base facing Hamels, who isn't really the best pitcher at holding runners on. And then finally, we can get to a value play that actually I'm not embarrassed to say in Jay Bruce, just 2,700, and I definitely want to get a piece of the Reds in cash games going against Hellickson. So expected to hit right behind Votto and Brandon Phillips. I like Bruce's RBI chances in this one.
Cool. Yeah, and on DraftKings, it's pretty tough to find values. Their pricing is fairly tight. So I kind of went guys that I thought had kind of sneaky stack potential, where you kind of stack them with other great hitters, and you could fit them in, and they'd be okay. First guy I have is Colby Rasmus. He's projected to hit in the 4 spot for Houston, and he, it's not obviously as great as their other bats in Springer and Correa, but yeah, I mean, he's hitting 4th. He's going against Tanaka, who is one of the highest hard hit percentages of the slate at 32%, which is second worst on the slate. Rasmus's positive splits and a really, really good park factor rating. So just kind of low price. You're kind of looking for any positives there. Zach Cozart's the next guy. He's at 3,100. He's hitting first, so it's kind of just one of those things where he's in he has a great par factor. He's in the highest implied total of the slate. He's in that 4-5 game. And kind of decent WOBA slugging splits, not like anything to write home about, but at 31, kind of in that high total game, you can get him in a stack. I think is a nice option if you're kind of going to stack the Cincinnati route. And then the last guy I have is Daniel Murphy. He's at 3,400. Washington, I think, is kind of an interesting play, which I think we'll get to in just a second. He's batting 5th behind Harper and Zimmerman, and has pretty good splits against righties. In particular, his 338 WOBO is pretty decent for his price. He's not a power guy, but I'm not really sure getting a power guy at kind of that price on DK is really an option. So I think getting a guy who has a good chance to get on bases and a good kind of implied total is really the best we can do. So those are my 3 guys for DK. We'll move to the next segment, which we'll kind of talk through stacks, our favorite stacks. So I guess we can start really, I guess the 3 main ones we can touch on, but I don't think that's too exciting. I mean, Baltimore, Arizona, Cincy, ones you like the public's going to stack, like we've mentioned in the Vegas one.
Yeah, they're the 3 chalkiest stacks, which I think has value, in certain size tournaments. And then, I think you can get creative and do some 3-man stacking involving these teams to get a bit more contrarian. But I think depending on the size of the tournament, if you're in these big tournaments, I think you want to get a bit more contrarian. So personally for me, my favorite sneaky stack of the day, I almost said snack too, and I was like, well,
wow.
It's better cheddars. Those are sneaky snack. They're delicious.
That's a bold.
Yeah, it is, man. My favorite stack, though, for sure, is going to be the Nationals. Julio Teheran serves up more dongs than the Chippendales. So I'm looking at the Nationals upside here with power and home run potential. And it's, I think easily with their implied run total, I think it's only 3.8 going against Teheran. I like them to have potential to exceed that and have some power, home runs, making them easily my favorite stack, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about earlier in the Vegas section, you're going to have to get off those 3 main stacks if you want to take down a tournament. Even if they go off for, what Vegas is projecting, you're not really going to get a value because of the ownership. So I think kind of finding one of these lower stacks that is going to be lower owned is the way to go. Mine's not necessarily sneaky. I like the Washington call a lot. Toronto, I mean, they're not one of the top 3 stacks, so I think they may be a little less owned. They obviously played today. Disappointed a little bit. Donaldson struck out 3 times. It's not like they put up like a ton of runs. They're obviously potent, but they're facing a lefty. And even though they're outside of Toronto, which is a hitter's park, they still just crush lefties. Donaldson, as we talked about before in the elite batter section, just crushes lefties. Batista actually has negative splits. He has reverse splits against lefties, but it kind of doesn't matter because he has kind of elite numbers regardless. And then there are kind of fringe guys. Obviously, Tulo's not a fringe guy. He has obviously positive elite splits. But guys like Russell Martin and Chris Colabello, like those guys that are kind of their fringe guys that you would want to stack with, also have elite splits. Russell Martin has a 506 slugging against lefties. Colabello has 571 slugging. So you're getting guys in your stack that you don't have to feel bad about playing because they also possess the upside. So they're not going to be really sneaky, but really anytime Toronto faces a lefty, especially if it's going to be like the 4th or 5th highest, implied total, so you get them at an ownership discount, I think you got to look at them.
I think the discount's definitely worth it. And going back to kind of the Diamondbacks, Orioles, and Reds, I'm not saying fade them entirely. I think you can utilize some of these plays and maybe add them to a stack with the Nationals or the Blue Jays and fill them in with some of these other guys. So if your stack hits, you kind of make up ground if the chalk does hit and kind of cover yourself and at the same time still offering upside.
Yeah, and if you even go a little bit lower than that, you're going to get stacks that are pretty cheap. Kind of cheap relatively to kind of the higher stacks where you're going like Chris Davis and all these guys. We talked about Nelson Cruz. Like these guys are going to be really expensive. But to a lower stack, you're obviously getting the ownership. You're also banking on Vegas being wrong, which we kind of like that strategy. Plus, you can fit in these elite bats. You can fit in Cruz. You can fit in Goldie. You could fit in Chris Davis with that stack.
Or you could fit in, a couple aces on DraftKings with a cheap stack on it.
Exactly. Yeah, and honestly, that might be what you have to do because I think it's going to be really hard to just fit into aces.
Yeah.
The problem is there's the pricing's tight and everyone's an ace, so it's really hard to kind of build a roster that you love at every position. It's going to be hard to get Kershaw plus another guy, and then be able to fit in Goldie or Chris or whoever it may be. It's just tough tomorrow, honestly.
It is. Yeah, every opening day is like this with all the aces on the mound.
Yeah. So don't get discouraged by that. That's just how first day is, just because they all start their best players. But you obviously have value batters and value pitchers as time goes on, and we'll obviously hit those. Cool. Let's move to the next segment, and we'll hit on it, which is going to be the stat of the day. So this is going to be a segment where we find a stat that we like from our models that we think is important, and we'll tell it to you guys. Jay, I'll let you start.
All right, cool. So after pouring through the models the last couple of days, all day, every minute pretty much, I think my favorite stat of the day, depending on this slate especially, is Miguel Sano. Led the entire league last season in hard hit percentage. So I really want to take advantage of him just this year in general. I think a lot of people don't realize how many bombs he's going to be dropping. And then I think a lot of people have the mindset that, they'll kind of wait until a guy like Sano starts doing something before they roster that person. They'll go more familiar players. Like even Tulo was an example tonight. Jose Bautista, when you could have gone Dickerson, kind of in that cleanup hitter role. So there are a lot of players that kind of play it safe, go no names until someone starts heating up. What you want to do is kind of exploit these people and take this guy early on before everybody else is on him. So basically you want to take their jewels and run just like Killer Mike and LP.
Love it. That's a good stat of the day. Mine is about Clayton Kershaw, as I hinted earlier. So I'll kind of run through this. The implied point total, like based on salary for a pitcher that scores 16.5 DraftKings points, is $8,900. There are 8 of 24 pitchers in the slate that are above 89. So even in the midst of everyone throwing out their ace, only 8 are above that range. So these are kind of your elite pitchers. In the last 2 years, when Kershaw's opponents projected to score 3 or less runs, which is, he's in kind of even a decent situation. Tomorrow, the opponent's projected to score 2.4 runs. He has been below 16.5 one time out of 49 games, which is just insane. And the next lowest game is below. He wasn't even below 20 points and below that. So we're talking like a 15-game sample, and he hasn't been below 20 points. And if you kind of wonder what the implied point total for 20-point DraftKings game is, it's 11-3. So you're talking about Kershaw is just insanely consistent, and obviously has the upside because if you look at his game logs, you see he has 50 and 60 DK point games. The dude's just a monster. He's never gets crushed. Yeah.
Although every time, sign me up to stack against Kershaw when he's at Coors Field or Chase in Arizona. So those are the only times where he has imploded.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. But yeah, he's a machine.
Like it. Cool. All right. So the next segment we'll hit on is the bold call of the day. I guess I'll start here, Jay, and then I'll let you finish.
Yeah. Mine's
be the bold.
I already had like 3, man.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll hit mine. So my bold call of the day is Nolan Arenado would be the highest scoring third baseman of the day, which I know that you appreciate as a Colorado guy.
Yeah, man. Arenado is a monster.
Yeah.
We do have it's pretty loaded position, so I like your take.
Yeah, no, it's bold. Yeah, and I will say that we're going to do this bold call of the day every time, and we're going to miss most of these, but that's what the bold call of the day is.
I don't think I'm going to miss one.
Okay, I like it. So some stats on Arenado is just crushed Cactus League this year. Spring training, he just like hit a home run like just about every at bat. It was insane. He's obviously just an elite hitter, especially against righties. He actually has reverse splits. So a lot of people just kind of, without even looking at their splits, they just kind of take a right against the left and a left against the right. He has reverse splits, so he's actually better against righties. He has a 593 slugging percentage, just amazing WOBA and ISO. Decent park factor tomorrow, which I think is important, and elite advanced data like hard hit percentage and distance. So I think that he's in a really good spot to kind of be sneaky. Obviously, he's got the tough matchup against Greinke, but I think he has the stuff, and he's an elite talent, and he can kind of overcome and be that guy. Obviously, don't stack the Rockies, but if you take him as the third baseman, I think he could take one out of the park.
Yeah, I'm not too entirely opposed to stacking the Rockies. I might go that route in a few lineups in some of these big field tournaments. But, yeah, I mean, there's nothing better than going to a Rockies game and sitting right next to the dugout and watching Arenado at the hot corner just stab a ball down the line, casually throw it on his knees, and just – I mean, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. So, pretty good. But, yeah, all right. So my bold call of the day is that A-Rod – is going to hit a home run and be under 10% owned in tournaments.
Okay, so I like it.
Get him while you can, get that decreased ownership and get that home run out of A-Rod.
I like it. I thought you were going to oppose my bold call today and say that A-Rod is going to be the highest third baseman.
Well, I think they can both go off, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to make that call.
There's a lot of good third basemen with
there is.
Manny's great. He's going to be he'll probably be the chalk.
I think so.
Obviously, it's going to be really high on as well. But cool. That's it. That's all of our segments. We're going to try to keep these to 30 minutes. It's going to be tough. This is our first one, so we were like, oh my gosh, how are we going to pack all of this data and segments into 30 minutes? But I thought we did all right. So
it's solid for sure. It was good. Good timing.
Yeah. So we'll obviously do these Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we'll have it to you obviously before the slate starts, or very early as we can, so you guys can digest it and get your plays out. Please check out our models and the trends. They're free tomorrow. So please, look at it. If you want to use our lineup tool and optimize and everything like that. Go check it out. We obviously have awesome data. We have a post that Jonathan Bales wrote, kind of just about all the new stuff. I did a podcast with Bales last week. We talked about all the new stuff. So check out all of that. We have tutorials and everything that helps you learn all of our tools and what the advanced stat means. So and everything's free tomorrow. So go make some money, please.
Yeah, no, free's cool. And yeah, my closing remarks, I can't stress this enough after doing this for a few years and same thing every kind of opening day, is that don't be a dummy and pass up on this overlay. Definitely make your lineups early, commit to playing. I think you want to do. It's in your best interest. And, have cash games if some double ups are overlaying, and have some tournament teams in case some of these overlays, tournaments, we see big overlays. So, fire at the overlays basically.
Yeah, there's overlay today, and especially in that DK $3 tournament, it overlaid quite a bit. So I imagine that we're going to see some. Yeah, so fire hard, shoot or shoot.
Take advantage. Yeah, man. You scared money don't make money.
That's right. Yeah. I guess that's it. We'll end it there. Go Heels. Will be my last closing remark.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna have some jelly beans. So yeah, good luck, everybody.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you guys for the Wednesday slate. I appreciate you listening, and hopefully we'll have a good year of MLB Flex podcasts.